Your reporting really painted an image of Zuckerberg as someone who took 2016 as a wake-up call, has leaned into policy in a very big way, cultivated personal relationships with policymakers, publishers, civil rights activists. Have we ever seen this level, this kind of engagement in terms of political and social reach out from a tech CEO before?
I think you see this a lot with Tim Cook and at Apple. You see it certainly a little bit with Jack Dorsey at Twitter, but it's definitely new for Facebook. It's new for Mark, at least as of the last several years. You know, a lot of these tech CEOs belong to the camp of, politics is something that happens on the other side of the coast. And 2016 was this massive wake-up call, and they realized they couldn't just leave it to the policy teams there anymore.
So I guess it still remains to be seen, but in your research and reporting, do you think that Zuckerberg and Facebook are ready for the election in a better position this time around while the issues are different than they were in 2016?
They've certainly done a lot more. They've hired thousands of people to vet content and to ensure that misinformation doesn't pervade the platform. They've hired fact checkers. They've hired a lot of people to try to make sure that they stamp out the same kinds of threats that we saw in 2016. But there are still a lot of challenges and new challenges like you brought up. So domestic disinformation is still a big problem. So these are not the Russians spreading misinformation about the election, but Americans spreading misinformation about the election. And so that's a challenge that they're still adapting to. And then there's, they have kind of competing goals. They want to make sure they stamp out disinformation, but they also want to make sure that they're being fair and neutral and as nonpartisan as possible. And these two goals periodically clash.
Deepa, you mentioned that this shift happened after the 2016 election, but from my standpoint, there were at least two shifts then. There's been a difference over the past 2 years and how Zuckerberg seems to have operated politically versus 2016 to 2018. Sheryl Sandberg was very much out front in that first period when the Cambridge Analytica heat was on. She took a beating in the public eye during that period. And It seems to me over the past couple of years, like in a way, she's retreated from that more direct engagement position and Zuckerberg has come more forward. Is that what you found as well?
I think that's on point. I think that, you've seen Mark really take control around the Cambridge Analytica crisis. I mean, that felt like an existential crisis for Facebook. It felt like they were suddenly experiencing a lot of different regulatory government scrutiny from around the world on both sides of the Atlantic. And Mark felt like he had to step in. If you remember, right around this time, that was his first congressional testimony. He was asked to testify in front of the Senate and the House. That was new for him. And he's done it several times since then. And so you have a much larger engagement, you're right, after 2018 that starts in the 2016 period with Mark trying to understand exactly what the impact of his platform has been on politics and then snowballing into what we see today.
So, Deepa, should investors perhaps take away from this the idea that founder CEOs like Zuckerberg, who like to focus on product and saw these policy and regulatory things as ancillary, have perhaps shifted their view and now view these political issues and headwinds as core to product decisions and things that they themselves need to take a hands-on approach to?
Absolutely. The government scrutiny isn't going anywhere. They have to continue to think about what the policy implications are of everything that they build, and they have to think about the social implications of everything they build. The days of, let's build it and put it out in the world and tweak it along the way, those days are largely over. They have to put a lot more thought into the products they build before they launch, which is a shift for these companies and a big part of why they've been so successful. They've been able to move so quickly, and now the additional scrutiny has slowed them down.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.